Okay, anyways, welcome to Name in the Works, but I'm going with Let's Talk Puck for right
Let's
now.
talk puck.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
thought it would be very fitting because some of the friends that I have on here will be very knowledgeable about hockey, and a lot of them won't be that knowledgeable at all. And so it's just people getting together and talking puck.
Nice.
And I'm your host, Pooja. Joining me today is my good friend Harrison, who is, where would you put yourself on the spectrum of like hockey knowledge?
I'd say I'm generally a huge sports fan. Hockey is tertiary in
Okay.
that realm. So I know a lot generally about sports, and so I follow the NHL
Okay.
kind of by proximity or proxy to everything else, but not like a hockey fan.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I did know that, but that's good. It's honestly, I think right now is the time to be talking about anything related to the NHL because it's the playoffs. And honestly, even for me, being aware of what's happening is so much easier when there's like one game happening every like 2 days instead of like sometimes there's like 12 NHL games happening on a given night. And for during like the regular season. And so I think it's a little bit easier to be tapped in on what's going on when it's like tonight is just the Sabres and Canadiens, and then round two or round three of the playoffs start on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So there's like no, unless the Canadiens and Sabres go to game seven, but other than that, there's no game until Tuesday. So
Yeah. And I will say too, my hockey fandom, if I am going to be watching an NHL game, it's most likely going to be during the playoffs. So,
yeah, and I mean it's also like there's not a ton of games happening for the NBA right now too because it's the NBA playoffs.
yep.
So it's just kind of like this sweet spot of like there's not a ton happening in the sports world. Like college sports have pretty much wrapped up. So it's just kind of like I guess the perfect time to be tapped in because it's like in the realm of sports in general, there's like not a lot happening.
100%. Yeah.
Except for the MLB. Still haven't
MLB.
made it to the Red Sox games, but
Yeah.
you gotta get to one.
We do have to get to a Red Sox game. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk playoffs.
Sure.
What do you know about the NHL playoffs? Let's start from there. Like where do you know what teams have kind of been okay, sweet. So the first to wrap up in round two were Carolina and Philly.
Yeah, that was
So
open and shut, definitely.
yeah, well, Carolina is now it's 8-0, and it's
Oh
the
yeah.
first team to do that since I think 1985.
Yeah, I think I saw that stat somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so since like the Oilers in 1985. So, do you know what do you know about Carolina?
I mean, I know more about the franchise history than I do about the current set of players, if I'm being completely honest.
I don't know that much about the franchise history, so that's like a good fill in the blank for me.
Well, we are in New England, so
And they started with the
Hartford
Hartford Whalers.
Whalers.
That I did know.
So I have family members that grew up in Connecticut, and it's a really sore subject, and they're very negative about the franchise and refuse to cheer for them. Um, so that history of them moving from Hartford to Carolina in the '90s, I believe, is a tough one. I know they've had some moderate success while they've been there in Carolina. I mean, um, but it's always going to feel a little odd. I think that's true of any kind of big franchise
Mhm.
relocation. Um, but I think the current squad they've been pretty good for a couple of years now.
They
Um,
have,
but
yeah.
this year was kind of a step up, it seems.
They have. I have some thoughts about that. First, to the point about like them leaving Hartford, I think that it's really interesting to me that there is only one NHL New England team.
Yes.
That like is very surprising to me because you have two in Florida, you have like three in California, but you only have one for the entirety of New England. Like that kind of blows my mind because it's so big in New England. And so I was just like, I don't know. That kind of surprises me.
Yeah, I think sports business is just ruthless. And like the TV mark, I from what I understand about it, it was the TV markets in Connecticut get like cannibalized by Boston and New York City, and so
Mm,
it was hard for that franchise to make, or the owners, I should say, that franchise to make what they would want to make. And
that's fair.
so like, and that's a disconnect, I think, between fans and, the league and how it runs itself, right? Where they were trying to, I think at the time too, they were trying to like diversify geographically. There wasn't a lot of franchises in the Southeast at
Yeah.
the time. Now there's more, obviously, but
I mean, I guess it's still really only Carolina and the two Florida teams.
in Nashville.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know if I consider Nashville Southeast
Yeah.
because they're not even in they're in the Western Conference.
Sorry, I wasn't talking about league structure. I just meant like
Yeah. Well, yeah.
American
No,
South.
I get what you mean. I get what
But
you mean.
but all of those franchises that we just mentioned are were either expansion teams or relocations in the last 30 to 40 years. And there was the Atlanta team that kind of failed, but
I was gonna say I'm not necessarily surprised that there is more or a slight market in Carolina for hockey because I'm I don't know if I'm not shocked that the Atlanta team failed. However, skating in Atlanta, there was a very big
yep,
hockey market. Like
I'm
there was
sure.
I skated with a lot of hockey players. And I think I was surprised at the time when I first started skating that there wasn't one. But Atlanta just has so many other big sports teams that like it's just it would hockey would be the first one to fall to the back burner, I feel like, because you have like football is so huge in like in the southeast and then especially in Georgia, and then the Braves are good, and like yeah, I don't know. It's just there's too much going on down there already that's pretty good that I think people have more of an interest in other sports.
Yeah. And I know we're talking about the playoffs, but you're reminding me, like when you asked me about my hockey fandom, one thing that I associate with hockey is like the regionalisms of it.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason I don't think I was as big of a hockey fan and I didn't play hockey growing up is because weirdly, hockey is very big in parts of the Midwest, but
Mm-hmm.
where I grew up in Iowa was not.
Mm-hmm.
Like Minnesota, Wisconsin, even the Chicago
Like
suburbs,
a lot
very,
colder,
yeah,
yeah, a lot colder
colder. They're just,
places.
and there's just more infrastructure and fandom associated with those regions, regardless of the NHL franchises. But obviously, Wisconsin doesn't have one. But the Wild and then the Blackhawks were like reign big there, and like the prep scene, like all of that stuff exists in a way that it just didn't where I grew up, and so hockey was kind of on the periphery inherently. Even if I like, there are hockey fans in Iowa, but
Yeah.
so anyways, Carolina I've always kind of thought was an odd fit, and I know the history there, and I have people, I have a biased perspective because the people I know who lost their team are pretty bitter about
Yeah.
it. So
I mean, and they are a really great team.
yeah,
And that like they are the best that they have been in recent years, kind of working up to it. I would almost argue though, I think that the series that they have played so far have not really compared. I think I just think that you have Montreal and Tampa Bay playing in the first round, and they're just like beating each other to pulps.
yep,
And then Montreal Buffalo, not necessarily to the same extent, but like kind of similar. And then you have like the Avalanche playing the Wild, where they're also going insane. Like those are crazy games. And I think that both of the series that Carolina has had so far have just not been they haven't really had a team that has like challenged them in the same way. Not saying that they like haven't played a great team yet, because I was hoping that the Senators and the Flyers would at least get one game. And I think the Senators did like they weren't winning by that much against the
and
Senators.
those some of those games were crazy. Like
Yeah, and so they were pretty insane, and I know like Brady Tkachuk was also talking about how he wasn't like performing the way that he should have been in the playoffs, which I think is a big thing across a lot of the different star NHL players that you see where they're not really pulling through in the playoffs. Especially in round 1, they weren't really that much, but I am also a big Flyers. I was really rooting for the Flyers, but I think with how their season had been going, they were kind of riding a high to me going into playoffs
they
round
definitely
one.
surged at the end. Yeah,
Yeah, they had a surge at the end of the regular season because they weren't really even in like the Super 16. They weren't really in like a playoff conversation. They had, I think it was like a 0.3% chance of making it to round 2 of the playoffs at the beginning of the regular season.
yeah.
So they like had that last minute surge and everything. And then I think that it's just kind of like when you're playing a team that has been kind of as consistently good as Carolina throughout the entire season, like you are going to kind of hit a wall. And Carolina also had pretty much an entire week.
I was gonna say too that first round series they played against the Penguins, it's charged up,
Yeah.
interstate kind of
Yeah.
thing. Went to 6, right?
Yeah, it went to
Yeah.
6 because
So
they
like kind
looked
of
like they
hard
were going for
fought.
a lead,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then they gave up 2 games.
But like
But
it's
yeah.
even if it had gone to 5 and not 6 or whatever, the emotional aspect of like you said, riding the high from the regular season, playing a team that you're pretty equivalent with on paper, getting out to that big kind of series
Yeah.
lead and kind of having to fight to make sure you close it out. Like that's a lot, and then you come and meet a team that is probably better than you. Not probably, as it played out, obviously better than you. Like
Yeah.
it was going to be an uphill battle to begin with, and like I will only watch part of that one game of that series because it was kind of open and shut. Like I said, like
Yeah. And but like I think that in that sense, Carolina has kind of had it easier than a lot of the other teams that are playing right now.
I
It
would
just
definitely
in
agree.
terms of
Yeah,
being like matched. And so I think that part of that 8-0 like complete sweep of round 1 and 2, I think plays into just the fact that like they haven't they've had a bit easier of series up until this point, and they've also had a week off in between each series to like deal with their banged up players. But I will say I'm somewhat grateful that the Flyers are out because Porter Martone, I don't know if you've I really doubt you've been following Worlds at all.
mm.
um
I mean I knew what's
yeah,
going
but
on,
it
but
just it started yesterday, and Team Canada has been like dominating. They just beat Italy 6-0 today,
yeah.
and Porter Martone is on Team Canada, and he's been playing very well.
Well, your guy Macklin scored a goal too.
He scored two
Oh, two.
today. Yeah, they were. I was following live updates on some random scoring
Where's the
website.
tournament being held?
Switzerland.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
odd timing knowing the
Switzerland.
NHL playoffs are going on right now.
Well, yeah, I think it was interesting because it was kind of like all of the players that didn't really make,
Basically, yeah. A
make
lot of
it happen.
younger players too.
Yeah, like Sidney Crosby is on Team Canada.
Yeah,
A bunch of the Bruins, I think 8 of the Bruins are playing at Worlds right now. Um, so there's a handful. There's like I think 4 on Team USA. Either what they have a lot of players specifically on either Team Canada or Team USA. So, but I don't know. That's been great. So I'm glad that he's doing really well at Worlds, and I get to see a lot of my favorites playing on the same team. So
well, there you go. Yeah, it's more hockey than most people would be able to handle, but not you, Pooja.
I did text Katie this morning, and because I was following like the live updates of the Team Canada game,
Yeah,
and I was like, I think that this could kill me. Like I think that like this is actually going to set me over the edge because I was following it, and I love like tracking the younger players because I think that they are just like so phenomenal to watch and like see them just like show up and like destroy so easily on the ice. And I like was like I just think like I can't even handle this anymore because I was like following it, and it was like, oh, like Minton scored a goal, and then after that like Celebrini scored two, and like
yeah,
assist from Porter Martone, and I was like, I think my brain's gonna go into overdrive. Like I can't do this anymore. um but it is like exciting to watch or like at least follow. I think it's a little less involved than the NHL playoffs for sure.
definitely.
But it is definitely interesting to watch still. Um, okay, circling back to the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that Carolina, I think that I actually don't know if I put that they would win. I forget what I put on my bracket. I think that they are not going to sweep whatever team they play next. I just realistically don't think that that's going to happen. The one way that I could see that happening is still like it's similar to what I think happened with Montreal and Tampa, where when Montreal went into the next game against like Buffalo, like their first game of round 2 against Buffalo, I feel like part of the reason that they were like destroyed so easily was because they were still kind of, I don't know, like recouping
Yep,
from their series against the Lightning. And then they have pretty much, yeah, I don't know. They've been doing pretty well. Did Buffalo win the most recent one? They're going to game 6, right?
it's in Game 6 tonight.
It's game 6 tonight. So,
I think Montreal can close out the series tonight.
yeah, so Montreal can win. Um but I did put Montreal winning. I think when I made my bracket, or like when I made my predictions initially, I was saying that it would either Montreal or Tampa Bay. I did not think they were going to lose to Buffalo. Like Buffalo was losing to either of those teams in my mind. Just because I think Buffalo has had a really great season, but I don't think that they have been playing as phenomenally as consistently, especially towards the end of the season as like Montreal has.
Montreal was really hot at the end, yeah.
And then you also, I mean, you had a lot of like Cole Caulfield pretty much did not score all of round 1. And then now he's started to get going. Like he's been scoring a lot in their recent games. And
Suzuki's been really good.
Suzuki's been great.
Yeah,
And then Demidov got his first goal of the playoffs. last night. Was it of the playoffs or was it of the series? I don't, not last night, 2 days ago when they were playing. And so that was really impressive. He was also second, or he was the runner up for the Calder Trophy.
Yep.
So that was that was great to see. But
But yeah, that series has been kind of interesting to watch. I like the physicality in the first round matchup with Montreal and Tampa was like really notable. And like you said, it's coming right off of that into a new series against a good team in Buffalo, but an inexperienced playoff team in Buffalo for the most part is kind of tough. And they've responded well. We'll see what happens tonight. I think a big factor in that series is the Bell Center is just really hard to play in.
yeah,
So that's where I think you're right. If the Canadians do advance, I think they could take a game from Carolina purely off home field advantage.
yeah. I think that another big thing, because a lot of people were saying, which I think this was us being in Boston as well, and like a lot of Bruins delusion, even though they were not the higher ranked team. Like they were not going into the playoffs with a better chance of winning than Buffalo.
No.
But the inexperience thing was a big thing for like people's argument that the Bruins could have won that series. And I think that they did, once again, to your point, have shown that they can handle that really well and can handle being in the playoffs. However, I think that one of their big things is their goalie problem. They have kept swapping out their goalies, and have I listen to the Empty Netters a lot, which is like a hockey podcast.
Yep.
And they are great. But something that like one of the brothers, Dan, has been saying was that like you cannot, like if you pull your goalie and you keep like swapping goalies, you can't win the playoffs. And he like framed it as a theory, but like it does make sense. You need a great goalie to win the Stanley Cup.
Yep.
And I think Buffalo's kind of hitting a wall. I think them pulling UPL and putting in Alex Lyon in round one kind of helped them out a lot, because for some reason the Bruins could not figure out how to score on Alex Lyon. Like they could not figure out this guy and they could not get past him. But then the Canadiens could. And so then they put in UPL, but then now they've kind of started to figure out UPL too. And so now it's like, okay, well, you're kind of screwed because you're like the Canadiens know both your goalies. And so I think that that is going to present a big problem for them because they don't have like a star goalie that can really take them to the Stanley Cup, especially against the Canadiens when like Dovish has been insane for so long and throughout the entire playoffs. And so I think that that'll also contribute to their downfall.
Definitely. No, and I think the Canadians will win tonight, and I think they'll probably lose in 5 or 6 games to the Hurricanes.
You think they'll lose?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're the only chance left to break the Canadian curse, though.
They are. I want the Avalanche to win, specifically like to win the Stanley Cup, specifically because I saw this stat when I was watching the Wild Avs game the other day of how I think Brent Burns is the active player who has the most amount of games played without a Stanley Cup, and I think it's like 1526. Like he's way up there. And I like in my mind, I'm like, oh my god, just give Brett Burns a cup. Like, please get him a cup. Like,
More so than like the nation of Canada getting a cup.
well, okay, the nation of Canada has a very promising future with the Canadiens. I don't know about their other teams. Their other teams don't really have that promising of a future.
It's been since 93, 94.
I think it would be nice for the Canadiens to make it to the Stanley Cup like final. Like I think that would be I would rather them go than Carolina. And maybe that's a very controversial thing to say, but I do think that I, especially as like a Bruins fan, I feel like I should be like boo Canadians, but I think that to your point, the nation of Canada deserves a win at some point.
We'll see. I mean, here's what I'll say, and I was going to mention this before when you were talking about the Hurricanes' path. For me, as like a casual hockey watcher this year, it's kind of thrown me off because the East, at least in the last 10 years, has had some really strong like dynastic teams, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
Lightning, the Panthers the last few years.
I hate the Panthers.
Everyone hates the Panthers, but this year the Panthers injuries like wrecked their season, right? And
Yeah.
even like stalwarts that hadn't won a cup, but like were always pretty good, Maple Leafs. Terrible, right?
Yeah.
Like
The Maple Leafs have been having some weird luck in the past like month. I don't like every time something like weird has been happening in the NHL in the past month that I have seen, it's normally related to the Maple Leafs. Some
first franchise
yeah.
in many ways. I mean, I know they'll be doing well after the draft, but regardless, point being, like for me as a casual watcher, and the Rangers weren't very good either. Like teams that were always at least competitive, if not phenomenal, and the Lightning were still good. Took a step back or were terrible, and so the balance of power in that conference, and like my perception of that conference's ability to like win the cup was lower, and definitely like yeah, the Hurricanes' path wasn't very. I agree, it was not super like tough, at least on paper.
Yeah.
Part of that is like, what would the toughest path through the East be? Like
It would be the path of Montreal right now.
Montreal, but like we talked about, even those teams they're playing, the Lightning definitely like have pedigree and the resume.
Yeah.
This Buffalo team's very good on paper, but they're young and inexperienced. Like, and then they would be playing the Hurricanes. But I mean, to get to that point, whereas I look at I know we're going to talk about the Western Conference in a minute. Like, just even some of the teams that have gotten eliminated or are going to potentially get eliminated down the line. Like, I don't know. I would have had a tough time seeing a team from the East winning the cup this year.
Yeah. And I think that that in part contributes to just like I don't know. I feel like the East has such a very like the gap between each team and how well they're doing is so small. Like even like the gap between the top and the bottom of like just like Carolina to the Rangers, I feel like is so much smaller than you look at the Western Conference and like it's like the Avalanche and then the Canucks. It's like a very very wide range and so I feel like it's just kind of like the East you have so many great teams. Like you don't have the best record of the entire league for this season. You don't have the worst record of the entire league for the season. And so I think that I don't know. It just like I feel like they are just like tearing each other to shreds like going into it. Versus like I'm honestly surprised how fun the Western Conference has been to watch. Because I think initially back when the playoffs first started, I was like, whatever, like you can predict the Western Conference so easily. And honestly, I think you could. I did take the Wild over the Stars, and I know that that was not that specific series. I think what people were kind of like, who knows? But I think that the Stars weren't playing as well towards the end of the
Definitely not.
season, and then they also had like a lot of injuries too that I think contributed to it, especially towards the end of the season. But the Wild were playing really well through the end of the season, and so I think that I was kind of like I think that the Wild have it because it is just such a quick turnaround into the like playoffs and people are always saying like the playoffs are a different game and like a lot of teams once they've clinched their spot like are resting a lot of their good players but it does still like it is a flow thing to a certain extent because the turnaround is immediate and if you don't have that like flow you don't have that mojo like right at the end of the season you have to either conjure it up going straight into the playoffs or like you kind of have to find it some at some point in the series and hope that's enough and I think that was the same reason why I picked the Canadiens over Tampa Bay um because it was this a similar boat of like the Lightning were just kind of off towards the end of the regular season
Yep.
and they had to like find and they like battled so hard but they like had to figure that out too
Yep.
um so I think that that was something but good transition to the Western Conference so I'm wearing my Ducks sweatshirt. I've actually been wearing this every single day since the Ducks got knocked out of the playoffs in
Yep.
mourning in memoriam
Yep.
of the Ducks. And I wish that it would have happened a little bit earlier because I would have loved to still see Beckett Seneca play through Worlds.
Oh
Because
yeah.
that's what I loved about I just said that's what I loved about the Flyers being knocked out early is that Porter Martone got to go to Worlds and I would have loved if that could have happened to Beckett Seneca.
Yeah.
Um, unfortunately, the 1 day turnaround wasn't enough, so
No,
I guess he couldn't.
not to fly to Switzerland to be ready to
Yeah,
suit up. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I we can maybe we can start. What was the first team to be done for the Western? Was it? It was Colorado, Minnesota
The first in the
in the second
in
round.
the second round. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Avalanche. I thought Minnesota would have maybe taken it to 6 games. I
That Avalanche team is a juggernaut. I don't
They
know,
they
like
are. They are.
I would have been I think actually in a weird way, if the Stars were healthy, just the history of those two teams and how they squared off in the playoffs, the Stars might have been able to take them a little further. Or
Yeah.
I don't know if they would have won the series this year, but
I don't know if I agree with that.
it's more just vibes. That's not like, but like those teams. I mean, they've had some really notable playoff matchups over the last couple of years, and there's a history there. I don't know. In the Wild, they're just a little less experienced in the playoffs.
They are, but they have a very I feel like they have a really, really good future. Like I feel like they if they play the cap increase, I feel like is really interesting in the NHL for this
Yeah, yeah,
season because there are like UFA and RFA list is like kind of insane for a lot of teams, and you have these teams that have been doing like so well, but a lot of their players that are kind of fueling that are like up, like the Stars. Jason Robertson
yep.
is up, and they I don't think I like watched something about like the math of it. I don't think that they technically have enough in their cap as it stands to sign him for what he would be expecting, um, which means that he's up for someone else to snag. So I like feel like that could be pretty detrimental to
Definitely future wise, yeah, the
yeah.
Wild. Um,
But sorry, circling back,
First not the Wild, the Stars, but
I think that what was it? I think Kirill Kaprizov. I feel like he at the beginning, I feel like he wasn't doing as well as I thought he was going to. Matt Boldy in the Minnesota Wild,
he
he
was scoring a lot
has
of goals.
been
Yeah,
insane, and I think he's getting like 2 million right now. Like he is just insane. And then obviously Quinn Hughes and Jesper Wallstead has also been doing phenomenal as a goalie. Um,
yep.
and I was really sad watching that game because I don't know if you saw anything about that, like it was game five,
No,
but at the
no.
end when they went into, do you know what happened in game five?
Oh, yeah, crazy comeback.
Yeah,
It
so
was three. It
Minnesota
was
had a
three nothing
3-0
in the
lead.
first period.
And I
Yeah,
think then like Colorado started, and then in like fourth period, third period, they tied it,
like
and then they went to overtime. And it was really sad because I forget who scored from Colorado for like the game-winning goal in overtime, but Jesper Wallstead afterwards was just like flat on the ice. Like after he like didn't make the save, he was not getting up off the ice. Um, and it was really sad to watch because he did so well. Like he was a phenomenal goalie throughout the entire series and throughout the previous series too. And he looked so devastated. It was really sad to witness. Which I'm sure there's no way to not be devastated in that, but especially with like how it went of like blowing a 3-0 lead. But oh
oh,
well.
don't lose your laptop.
I
Yeah,
know.
um, yeah. I mean, even if they win that game, though, right? Like it's it was a climb, even winning one game, and
But yeah, I didn't
it
think they
just
were gonna win the
felt like they
series.
were on their heels the whole time when I watched. But I think that's my like big takeaway is the Avalanche are Cup favorites in my mind, and
Oh, and once again, please get Brent Burns a cup.
yeah,
Please, the Avalanche
yeah,
need to get that man a cup. He's played too many games.
yeah.
He needs a cup.
Um, that roster is just it's ridiculous, and it's hard to keep up.
And the one other thing that I want to say about that roster is something related to Kucherov, McDavid, McKinnon. And I saw something once where people were like, oh, it's not about who's the most valuable to their team. It's like who's the most valuable to the league.
Oh yeah,
And then the NHL posted it on YouTube. And because I watched YouTube Shorts is my only form of social media. And they were like, this is awarded to the player who's the most valuable to their team. And then I was like, wait, which I not to discredit, like those were the top three scorers of the regular season, so
yep.
not to discredit them by any means. But I remember being really disappointed that Macklin Celebrini wasn't up there because I was looking at like, especially you look at McKinnon and Kucherov, and it's like you have a star-studded team there. Like you have a lot of pieces that are amazing there. And yes, you take away those top scorers, and obviously your team's going to take a fat hit. Like that's like not to say that their impact on their team is insignificant, but like you take like Macklin Celebrini away from the Sharks, they've got nothing. Like
I mean,
they're doomed.
they didn't make the playoffs though.
Yeah, well, they didn't, and like I know that that's the point. And he obviously is so young; like he has so many more years to win all of these awards. But I remember being like, if you're talking about the player that's the most like valuable to their team, you have to look at a like player who you take him away and their team is doomed.
Yeah,
But
the
I trust.
unspoken part of that is always, and this is true in most leagues, player most valuable to their team on a team that was good in not even just a playoff team typically, but like
Yeah,
a true contender of some sort, right?
true.
And like that's where the Sharks obviously didn't even make the playoffs, but like
Yeah,
I'm thinking of even the Ducks. Like that's not a team that they made the second round, which is great, but
yeah.
I don't think anyone was like predicting the Ducks to win the cup.
I mean, I think that they could have swung it if they
I'm
so the
saying
Ducks
to you
fell
as you wear your
greedy.
Ducks sweatshirt.
They are the mighty Ducks of Anaheim.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
but to that point, which I know it's a different beast as well, but the rookie of the year went to Matthew Schaefer. Very, very well deserved. I don't know if you saw anything about how that was presented to him. It was presented to him on Good Morning America. They brought out like his dad and brother. They brought out like the Martins family. Like it was very emotional. He was very emotional. It was so sweet to witness. But the other two rookies that were finalists were Beckett Seneca and Ivan Demidov, who were in the playoffs.
yeah.
And Matthew Schaefer won by a landslide, and the Isles didn't make the playoffs. And I think it is obviously a different award and done through very different metrics.
Yes,
Um,
100%.
but I was just like, I don't know.
It's almost it's not the opposite. You can win rookie of the year and be on a really good team, but it it's hard to produce as a rookie on a really good team.
That's true.
So I think it's biased towards these high draft pick kind of
Yeah.
like players who are typically on a team that's going to be struggling by
Right.
design, like
Yeah.
they're rebuilding or
Yeah.
so it is funny that that contrast, like you said,
Yeah.
where like Macklin is honestly the age a rookie could be, obviously, like
Yeah. He's
but he's like
19.
performing. He's in a different discussion, which he's not winning an award, but would you rather be in Macklin Celebrity's boat or have been a finalist or have a player that was a finalist for Rookie of the Year? It's like kind
Yeah.
of a, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
And,
I agree.
and the NBA like has an award for most improved player. I actually don't know if the NHL has something equivalent, but that's kind of where you can bridge that gap. Um, but no, I totally get what you're saying and kind of how the psychology of the awards is different.
Because we only have one more series to talk about, which is, speaking of, the Ducks and the Knights.
The Ducks and the Knights.
Which is the Ducks were the most recent team to be eliminated
Yep.
from the playoffs, which is why I'll be wearing my Ducks sweatshirt until there is another team that is eliminated from the playoffs. So let's talk about the Ducks and the Knights. When I was making my initial predictions of the teams that I thought were going to make it past round one, the Ducks were the only team that I did not get right because I did think the Oilers were going to, and I know like people have talked about it. McDavid, Draisaitl has talked like they've all talked about it where they're like we were an average team, and people like we just expected a lot of ourselves. People expected a lot of them, and like they weren't the Ducks had a pretty good regular season. They just kind of fell off a little bit towards the end, which kind of in my like logic thought process of like what team was going to do well in the playoffs, there's like them kind of falling off a little bit towards the end of the regular season put them lower in my mind because the Oilers like they finished below the Oilers. And speaking of, I think that there's a curse on being the number two seed in any division because every single number two seed got eliminated in round one. Because Tampa did. Tampa lost to Montreal.
Yep.
You had the Penguins losing to the Flyers,
Yep.
and then you had the Oilers losing to the Ducks, and then the Stars losing to the Wild. So I think that there is some curse on being second in your division at the end of the regular season, specifically for this playoff series, because every single team was knocked out. And I like that's what so I when I was talking about it initially with people and they were like, "Oh, well they technically are like the better team so it could go either way." And my predictions for everyone except for the Oilers Ducks series in round 1 was that like the third team would beat the second because they were just doing so much better by the end, but it's like the second had like a stronger start to the season and so it was
Yep.
just the way that the points shook out. Um
Can we talk about the playoff format for a second?
yeah.
Because I know this is very controversial. Like the
Yeah.
NHL has switched it up multiple times in the
Yeah.
last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan. I think it's very confusing as a casual observer, this like how the standings work, and I to me it creates these kind of odd matchups that you're playing somebody in your division in the first round. Like the familiarity plays a role certainly,
Yeah.
or sorry, cross division. Like whereas like just lining up on 1 through 8 in each conference, I think would be a lot cleaner.
How
Uh,
so? So like,
well, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, right?
mhm.
The top 3 from each division go through, correct?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then there's 2 wild cards.
Yeah.
Who okay. And then matchup wise, top seed plays the lowest wild card, or
Yes.
winner of one division plays the winner of one division with more points than the other winner of the other division plays the lowest wild card.
Yeah. So like the conference
Ottawa
title.
was the last team into these two
Yeah. So
playoffs,
like
and
number one in the conference plays wild card two.
yes,
Yeah.
and then number 2 in the conference if they won their division played
Which is
wild card
exciting
one,
that you're talking about this.
etc. Right,
Yeah.
and then 2 and 3 play from the same division or across division. I can't remember.
2 and 3 play the same division.
Yeah, so that is where I'm like, for a while the divisions didn't matter in the NHL, and now they're really important, and they've been shifted around.
Hmm.
It's just a little bit, like you said, the paths can be uneven,
Yeah.
and like it's not just about imbalance in the conferences now; it's the imbalance in the divisions where, and I think that definitely could play a role in what you were talking about, like familiarity could lead to more upsets where teams can figure out a trick to beat a team that they might be worse than on paper or just
Yeah.
not have as many like as much ammo in the clip. It it changes the dynamics of the cup playoffs where like the advantages of being the higher seeded team I think are slightly lower. You do get the home ice advantage
Yeah.
throughout the series, but that is something as like again as a casual observer is like interesting shift. And I've heard rumblings from people who know more hockey than me that it's like got some interesting implications.
It does. And I think to your point, like looking at like the playoff bracket, you are just knocking out some of the best teams in round one just because they're playing some of the other best teams. And then you have some of the like not great teams. Cause like even looking at the Eastern Conference, the jump like the divides between Buffalo, Tampa, and Montreal were so drastically different than the divides between Carolina and then Pitt and then
Far weaker or far
like
weaker division
division of the Eastern Conference was so far behind
in
the
that. Yeah.
Atlantic division.
Yep.
And so then it's like you have the like top four Atlantic teams, which were the Sabres, Lightning, Habs, and then the Bruins. You're taking two of those out in round one. And then you have the Fly, which once again, I love the Flyers, but you're taking the Flyers
They're not as good as the Lightning. Yeah.
not as good as the Lightning, and they probably are not as good as the Bruins. Bruins had I can't talk about the Bruins. It's too soon. Um,
But no,
yeah,
exactly what I'm saying. Like it just creates a weird dynamic where like
yeah. Well,
it,
and same thing in the like Western Conference where it's like, okay, you're knocking out Dallas in round one, but then like the Ducks and the Knights, which the Knights have been the Knights are interesting. We haven't even talked about that series yet. We'll get back to that. But you have Dallas being knocked out in round one, and so it's just and then like same thing with like the Wild being knocked out in round two. But then you have like this secondary series of like the Pacific Division, which is just it was just an entire mess. Like they were so far behind every other division, and not to say that they're not good teams, but you compare them against the other teams, and you're like, oh my god, like their points were so much lower, and so it's just kind of like you have these Pacific Division teams advancing when like you knocked out so many of your best teams in the league overall. And that's yeah, it's just not the same. So
so that's where like the intuition of like, oh, a team made the conference semifinals.
yeah.
They must be better than the teams that got knocked in the first round.
And
Doesn't really
it doesn't hold in the NHL.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Um but yeah, let's talk about the last series.
Yeah. So Ducks eliminated.
Yep.
I'm not surprised because I did put the Knights down on my bracket. I didn't think that the Ducks were going to win this series. I thought that they had a chance because I made my second chance bracket, I think, after the Knights Ducks game one, and the Knights had won. But the Oilers won game one against the Ducks as well. And then the Ducks just were like showing up. And they did put up a pretty impressive fight because they went to 6 games.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, and I read something actually this morning that was saying that Cutter Gauthier, he had broken his L2 and L3, either that or his like L3 and L4, two of his vertebrae at the end of March, took 2 weeks off, and then started the play, like played in the playoffs. And it was like, it's just insane to me, like the injuries and everything that these players are playing on, like Nikita Zadorov on the Bruins
Yep.
in game 3 of round one, completely ripped his MCL off his knee
Yep.
and played the next 3 games. And he takes it like he does some tough hits on the ice. He's a fighter, and so it to do all of that. I don't know. Sorry, back to the Ducks and the Knights, if we will ever talk about this series.
Hmm.
Um, so I think I wasn't necessarily surprised, but I was really devastated the Ducks didn't make it. So it was just something where it's like I know exactly how this is going to go, but I'm just really hoping that that's not how it's going to go. Um, and you just have like gosh, some great players on both teams that like
100%.
I do think that it could have gone either way.
But that night's offense has been really,
It's been
really good.
insane. Yeah.
Marner's been really good.
Marner
What
has
a
been
signing.
Marner has the most points in the playoffs right
Yes,
now.
I was just looking at that
Yeah.
list. Yeah. Um, and I don't think is Eichel's been playing, right? He's not hurt. Yeah. But
He's been playing Jeff Viel, who I know used to be with the Bruins.
yeah, yeah.
He has also been like understated hero of the Knights. I feel like because there's so much attention on Eichel and Marner,
Yep.
and like also some of the other ones like Dorofiev has been scoring a lot or scoring a decent amount too. But like Jeff Viel has just been awesome in the playoffs in terms of like maybe not necessarily getting his name on like the stats sheet, but like he has been playing so well.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know.
And then another series where that experience gap is really evident, where
Yeah,
a lot of these Knights players have played in the playoffs multiple times,
yeah,
gone deep into the playoffs at times, right?
yeah.
And the Ducks have some studs.
But they're
They're
young
young
team.
studs. Yeah.
Yeah, young team, and I think that that just makes me really excited for their future. They have a really promising team. Them and the Sharks. I think California is going to be such a fun place to follow hockey wise.
Yeah.
Um, but I like, oh my gosh, I was so devastated, but I was so proud of them for making it this far because I also think they were a team that no one thought would make it as far as they did, and like here they were. They were just going
Yeah.
crazy and putting up a pretty good fight. Like it wasn't like not to discredit the Kings or the Senators or the Flyers, but they were playing against teams that had pretty good players that were experienced and like just kind of had like outweighed them in experience, and they were just having the time of their lives on the ice. Who actually I don't know them personally, that's kind of my assumption based off of how they're playing, but they were having a great time on the ice. Like they were a fun team to watch, and I feel like they're going to be a fun team to continue to watch.
Yeah.
I just really, really like deep in my heart, I'm like, wouldn't it have been so nice if the Ducks won the cup? Not that I think that would have happened, but I think that would have been like in my dream world. The Ducks would have won the Stanley Cup, and I would have been so happy. I would have been wearing this for probably like 2 months straight until probably until the preseason started. I'd be wearing my Ducks sweatshirt, just celebrating them.
Well,
Um,
here's what I'll say. Again, making analogs to other sports because that I'm more familiar with, but there's always in any major sports league, right? Young teams that have, you know, gone through it for a couple of years to kind of build up their rosters to the
yeah,
draft, like the Ducks. Um, there's always that year that they don't necessarily win it, right? But
yeah,
they prove that they belong.
yeah,
They contend for real.
yeah.
In the case of the Ducks, right? Like great regular season, sure. If they got knocked out in 5 games in round one, people might be like, oh, they're still not ready.
Yeah.
They go to round two, go to six against a team that has like some true like top line stars, like um, and is a cup contender, and like yes, they may not have ever had a shot at winning the cup, but their young guys cut their teeth and like are like now grittier and more experienced for it, and they could come back next year and like be a true top contender,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
or like it gives the mandate to the front office to, like you said, in a year where there's a lot of opportunities in the free agency, that like you can shore up that roster and come back.
Yeah.
So it's certainly exciting times for not just that young team but all of the young teams we've been talking
Yeah.
about, because there's so much change on the horizon, and the league feels like it's shifting as we speak. Like all those old guard teams I was talking about in the East that have fallen off or are changing, like that's also a league wide story. The Oilers, everyone was talking about their 2 cup runs. Like this is it. They need to do it with McDavid now, or they're not going to have the ability to compete.
Yeah.
Like, and that obviously came to fruition this year. It could be even more true next year. That Stars roster could be, not
Detriment.
sustainable. Yeah,
Yeah.
like so. If you're the Ducks, you can be excited because you have those young
Yeah.
guys locked up, right? Or at
Yeah.
least
A
modern
decent,
locked up.
yeah, pretty, and like they have the ability to do it. I think there are a lot of teams that are kind of a little screwed going into this season. The Stars being one of them. Of like, how do you kind of deal with this roster? And I think that um, the Ducks don't necessarily have that same problem of them being like, all right, well, we've got some good players and we have the ability to keep them, so let's keep them. And
Yeah.
I think that that's really good for them. Similar on the Sharks, they have the second they have the second draft pick now, and so they have also a very similar ability to kind of really build up their team. And I think because I remember seeing stuff about the Bruins at the beginning of or like after playoffs where they were kind of doing their like end of season media conference. Um, and they were just kind of talking about how they knew this year was going to be a building year because they like had a new head coach, and last year was so bad for them. And I think that it was a building year. I think that they did. I don't think that they had a bad season. I know people of Boston are very upset because there is some kind of curse on Boston sports, specifically this month, for every single team to have been knocked out of round one of the playoffs. And not necessarily, the Bruins weren't necessarily a surprise because they weren't that high up in the playoff standings, but or in the regular season standings to do well in the playoffs. But the Celtics being done, the Fleet being done, and the Providence Bruins finished number one in either their conference or their division, and they also got knocked out of round one of the playoffs. And so I think all of those happening, I'm like, no, I actually, my delusion is that I'm like, it wasn't actually the team, it was entirely the city of Boston, because some curse had to have been placed on all of them to be like, there's no way that all of these, once again, maybe not looping the Bruins into this category, but these phenomenal teams that had really good regular seasons are just decimated in round one of the playoffs and out by these teams that are like way outranking them or like way below them in the rankings. And so I think that kind of, I would like to blame the Bruins' detriment to the curse of Boston, but maybe they kicked it off because they were the first team I think to be knocked out. So
They were.
they were. I think it was them, and then the Celtics, and then I think it was the Fleet or the Providence Bruins after. But yeah, no, there was some curse on the city.
Couple thoughts on this curse of Boston sports. First of all, fascinating that you mentioned the AHL hockey team before the Red Sox sucking to start the season.
Sox sucking is not new.
Sure. But regardless, I think your circles might be a little different than the average Boston sports fan in
But
terms
the
of
Sox are also not in like they're in the begin towards the beginning of their
totally
season.
fair. I know the AHL exists. I know the Providence Bruins exist. I could not have told you any results from their season other regardless.
Well, the Providence Bruins goalie won AHL goalie of the year, Mikey DiPietro.
Awesome. My second thing, I will second that I think there's a curse of on Boston sports, but I think it's a curse of expectations.
I would agree.
This has been, and like I'm saying this as somebody who lives in and loves Boston. I even am like my primary team is the Celtics in the NBA. Otherwise, I do cheer for different teams. But this city has been spoiled in the 21st century from its sports teams, and that's great. And I'm not even really defending, especially the Celtics, right? Like that is a team.
They were number two.
They were the number 2 seed, but like generally speaking, I will say Celtics are very well managed.
Yeah.
The Bruins kind of needed to commit to retooling after last year. Both teams this year had expectations of either kind of growing from tearing it down to the studs from the Bruins perspective.
Yeah.
And in the Celtics case, Tatum was injured.
Yeah.
So like neither team, if you were going to ask fans in October when the season started, if you were going to say, is my team making the second round? Bruins fans may have been like somewhat hopeful. They didn't get rid of everyone, right? And they have some good, exciting young players, maybe. Celtics fans wouldn't
have questioned
No,
it.
they
Yeah.
thought they were going to be picking in a lottery, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you get to April and your team's in the playoffs, you have the same hope, right?
Yeah.
And it hurts. A first round playoff loss hurts,
Yeah.
especially in the case of the Celtics, where like blowing a 3-1 lead and losing to a city rival, and it's tough.
Yeah.
But with that said, everyone's going to be fine. The teams are both going to be fine,
Yeah.
and a curse I think might be a bridge too far. And in terms of the fleet, I can't speak as
And maintain the
intelligently.
curse. Maintain the curse. That's my belief.
Fair enough, and we'll see. But I don't think you can say a city that has seen 20 plus championships
Yeah.
or damn near 20. And excuse my cursing. I don't know what kind of podcast this is, but I don't think you can complain that much.
I am definitely not. I think it's also, at least for me, to see teams make it to the playoffs to begin with is something to be maybe it's like my like glass half full mentality.
Not at all.
Um
There's franchises that like the Sabres, right?
yeah. It's 15 years.
That listen, if you come off one of your worst years in recent history, the Bruins I'm talking about,
Yeah.
last year, and you come back and make the playoffs the next year, and then yes, you lose in round 1, not like getting swept.
Number one team in your division.
100%.
It's like that's what I agree with your expectations thing, because I do think that people like were kind of looking at things as us being in the city of Boston with just kind of like oh, like the Bruins have been a good team before, and they were really really picking on the like Buffalo lack of experience thing, where it's like no, but they still did better. Like it's like they were the first team in our division and we have a really good division. And I think people weren't picking up on that as much. They were just kind of hoping that playoff hockey would be different enough that Buffalo would start panicking and be like, oh my god, I don't know what to do. And the
100%.
Bruins would be like, oh well, we do know what to do, and then just destroy them. And that didn't happen. But I think that like, because to the credit of a lot of a lot of the people that I talked to about the Bruins losing were like, yeah, they need like a crazy retool, like everything. And I was like, is this not a really good sign that after an awful year, you're making round one of the playoffs, and yeah, you lose to the best team in your division. It's the best team in your division, and the Bruins like came towards the end of the like regular season a little more promising. And it wasn't like they did have some tough moments in that series, and I think you could definitely make the point that they would not be nearly as like supported or like rooted for if not for how Jeremy Swayman did, because I don't think I could have this conversation if Jeremy Swayman wasn't performing the way that he was performing, because the Bruins I don't even think would have made the playoffs.
Well, that's the thing. You talk about building blocks, right? Sure, Stanley Cup winner,
Yeah.
top flight goalie,
Yeah.
top flight wing
Vesna
scorer.
Vesna finalist goalie.
Yeah,
Vesna finalist
you
goalie.
have one of the best goalies in the league,
Yeah.
and that wasn't always the case with Swayman. I know he's had his ups and downs, but he's really good this year. And then Pasternak is one of the best scorers in the league, and that he's like more you kept him you like from the core you previously had, but then you have some young pieces like your guy.
I can't
You
we
don't want to
can't
say the
yeah, we
name.
can't talk about it. No.
Podcast listeners will have to
Guess.
guess. Um, but like as in terms of roster building, there are things to look forward to too. So
Yeah.
I and I know we're talking about a team that got eliminated in round 1, and this is a Boston-based hockey podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the curse of Boston is a result of the calendar, meaning the playoffs all line up in all the sports you were talking about at the same time, and none of the teams being well positioned to win a championship in the first place, but people
Yeah.
being so used to such high levels of success in this area that like yes, it's disappointing, but is it unexpected? No, to your point.
And I think that part of it might have also been the Patriots, which this is like I feel like this is a stretch. So this is not necessarily like I understand that this could be just too far of a reach. But I do think that the Patriots making it to the Super Bowl in long form contributed to that, because I think people were so excited about them making it to the Super Bowl. And I think even by extension of them like not really performing that well in the Super Bowl at all,
It's
but then
putting
still
it,
just
but yeah,
okay, but like just like not doing that well in the Super Bowl, but still making it that far, there's something to be said. And I think people were so excited. Like being a Patriots fan was fun again, that I think it kind of spewed into like, okay, Patriots are done, but the Celtics are still going, the Bruins are still going. the Red Sox are going to start up, which on the Red Sox, so many of their great players are injured. I keep getting notifications from the MLB app saying that they are like all of these people are out for injury. And I don't know that much about the Red Sox or like the extent of like their stats or anything the way that I do about like the Bruins and about the NHL, but they're all names that I know, which is something to be said about their performance. Because I think I got a notification today that someone else that like a name that I could recognize from the Red Sox as a Red Sox player that like has done well being out for injury.
Mm.
Trevor Story. Trevor Story's out for injury now, and so I think that
To be fair, Story being injured is probably a net positive for the Red Sox.
well,
Pretty brutal.
okay. Well, then there maybe this will be a reset. You know, I took a fall when I was skating the other day and I had some knee pain. We were watching one of the like Bruins Sabres games. Like I had like kind of messed up my knee.
Yes.
Then I took a nasty fall when I was skating. My like knees were in so much pain. They had swollen up so hard and like I was like double icing them for like hours and hours. Like it was so bad, but it kind of almost reset my knee pain from before, where by the time I was done icing them, I was like, whoa, my knee is totally fine. So maybe that could happen to some of these players
Yeah.
too. Who knows?
Remedy, yeah. You just need a reset.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I'll say about Boston sports because if I get on my soapbox even more, I could get in trouble. But
I think that that's the fun part. I think that like I love picking a fight talking about sports, and I think that's my detriment. That was like my motivation for starting this podcast is that I feel like I don't have enough people to talk about hockey with,
yep.
and even by that extension like sports in general, because I feel like most of my friends do not care at all, and that is totally fine because it's not everyone's thing. But I like am like feel like I to your point about following the playoffs at the same time of following worlds for hockey, like I am like boiling to the brim with like, oh my god, I need to talk about hockey and no one around me cares, which is totally fine because why would they? They're not hockey fans. But I'm like, I need to talk to someone about this. Like someone has to understand what I'm saying. So like
Well, I'm more than happy
there you
to
go.
be on the
I'm
pot.
sure you'll be a very recurring guest,
Yeah, more than
given
happy
that
to come back.
most of my friends don't.
We can talk off season when that well, we can talk about the Cup Finals if we want to come back for that.
Yeah.
The off season, we can even
The
talk other
draft, the
sports.
trades. We can.
I know this is talking puck, but
Well,
we're
no, so I was thinking because I was like, what an epic combination it would be if we had a sports podcast and Sophie was our brand manager. Like, could you imagine how unstoppable we would be?
we have to tell the listeners who Sophie is, by the way.
Sophie is Harrison's girlfriend.
Yes, and
And
one
one
of
of my
Pooja's
best friends.
best friends.
Like literally, I met her the first day that I moved to college, and I was like scared and crying because I didn't know anybody at college. And then I like walk out of my room after being scared and crying, and Sophie was in the hallway, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're also from Ohio.
Yep.
Let's go get dinner." It
Yep.
was great. So
And a great branding mind, not a sports fan except for the Celtics. So
well, but that's what I'm saying is that Sophie, as our brand manager, she would do so well. She is like a social media design like
yeah,
genius.
exactly.
So I think that that would actually be really good.
And then we have a pipeline. Daniel Pitch returns this fall.
That is true. And who is Daniel Pitch?
Daniel Pitch is one of my best friends, similar levels of sports fandom to me, and I would say similar levels of hockey watching.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe
Okay.
even slightly less.
Okay.
But he likes sports enough that he will dabble
Yeah.
to the same extent that I will. So yeah, I think there's a bright future ahead of us.
I think we could totally do it.
Yeah,
It'd be so fun.
yeah,
It's literally just us recording our conversations. That's what we just did.
we did. Yeah, and
So
what are we at time wise?
an hour on the dot.
Perfect.
All right.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for watching. Let's Talk Puck. I will see you at some point because my posting schedule is not consistent as I have never posted yet.
episode 1.
So this could be episode this probably will be episode 1 because the other one doesn't have the same level of urgency to be uploaded. So
There we go.
there we go. All right. Well, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.